we could start with the top guys or the guys that people are most interested in. And so we begin in just summer league impressions. I want to hear from you, and we'll start with, I guess, what became the surprise number one pick, even though he was number one on your big board, Paolo Banchero. What have you made of the time that he played for the Orlando Magic before getting shut down?
Yeah, anytime you're a rookie and you get shut down after 2 games, that says a lot about how much they value you and what you can bring to the table. I was incredibly impressed by Paolo. I think that there are still areas for every single one of these guys to continue to tighten up, particularly for a guy like Paolo who's going to have a large role in the NBA level. His flaws become a little bit more apparent. There were a lot of concerns pre-draft about his defense and about his three-point shooting range. I think hopefully the 2 games of Summer League action showed that those were a little bit overblown. The concern with Paolo, it's not necessarily decision-making, but it's the speed at which he makes decisions. He's a very good passer, but a couple of the flaws that he had an 8-turnover game in Las Vegas, was that sometimes it can be a little harder for him to pick up his dribble and make that read. He wants to dribble it one more time before he ends up making a pass to somebody else. And you got to be more of a proactive than a reactive passer if you're going to be a top 1 or 2 option on an NBA team, because defenses clog the floor. They want to jump W, all of these different things. So in order for him to get a little bit better at that, he's just got to be faster with his recognition and making the proactive pass. But everything scoring-wise that you could want to see from him, he showed. Mismatch posts, strength on the interior, good three-point shooting, isolation moves that are, Carmelo Anthony-esque, really good passing, competitive defense, great in transition and in the open floor. He's the real deal, folks, and we saw that on full display just in 2 games.
I was impressed by his defensive stamina, where I was prepared for him to just be awful based off what some people were saying. That was pleasantly surprising, and there is some anarchy to, I guess, his processing speed, but, when the spin moves come together and it's not, discombobulated, oh my God, it's like explosive ballet. What it's just he's been a joy to watch. And I think you probably convinced me that he should have been the number 1 player in the draft, but I'm just convinced now that this dude is going to be incredible and that the Magic now have their directional pole star. All it took was 2 games, and I didn't even watch the full 2 games. I watched his possession breakdowns for one of the games, not the one against Houston, the other one. So I'm sold. Paolo Banchero is good. That's my hot take.
And I think if you're Orlando, it gives you the faith and the clarity of how to build the rest of the roster for the summer. I think that Summer League is positioned in the NBA calendar and the way it is so that the big name free agents can go first and the guys that are priority and need to chase the bag. Then you have Summer League. And from there, you try to figure out how you're going to reshape the margins of the roster, a.k.a. do we go after that veteran for maybe a little bit more than he's worth just so that we get him? Or can we trust a rookie to potentially slide into that role? Did that second-year guy take the next step in order to become a dependable rotation guy at the NBA level? So, Summer League is great for getting more of a glimpse into that. I think for Orlando, they always knew Paolo was going to be the guy, but what role is best for him? How does his playmaking, translate to the NBA level? And I think what you see from this is they now have an abundance of riches when it comes to playmakers with the ball in their hands. Where an RJ Hampton, a Markelle Fultz, somebody can become a little bit more dispensable and be more of a trade asset as opposed to, hey, we just need as many good young players as we can. No, now the identity is starting to take shape of what you need around your best guys, which to me are Paolo, Suggs, and Franz Wagner.
And having the one player that you can cite, that's who we need to tailor the talent around him, is huge. And that's what they still lacked, I think, even coming out of this season. Franz Wagner was really good. I still remain incredibly high on Jalen Suggs, but his rookie year was topsy-turvy enough, I think in part because of the role he did have to shoulder on offense, to where it's still to be determined whether he would be that guy. Paolo just looks like, okay, now we have someone who we start to flesh out the decisions for the rest of the roster around. That's big time.
It's like I always say, you draft for your star player. You draft for the guy that's going to be the number 1 option in the alpha, because even if you miss, that's still the hardest guy to get for your roster. It's worth taking that swing on. That's why Paolo was number 1 in this class for me. It was less about the skill gap between him and Chet Holmgren. It was more about the role that he fills being harder to find and more impactful. And that's why, I think Orlando made the right decision, and hopefully, again, we are not seeing just 2 games of absurd play and then he fades into the back. Like, this is not an Anthony Randolph situation where he's going to be a little bit different. Like, he was fantastic, and I'm telling you all, it translates on an NBA floor.